Welcome to The Dating Lab, the podcast that makes midlife dating simpler, saner, and maybe, hopefully, a little less overwhelming. I'm your host, Alyssa Dineen, and each week we'll break down one real dating challenge that adults 45 plus face today. From confusing apps and unclear profiles to first date nerves and slow fade messages. And you'll walk away with at least one practical tool you can use immediately to date with more confidence, clarity, and momentum. Think of this as your bi-weekly place to experiment, learn something new, and hopefully try something new without the pressure. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Dating Lab. I'm Alyssa Dineen, and today I have with me here today Dr. Saida and Aaron Michael of Embodied Love University. They are both sex experts, and Embodied Love University is a global platform dedicated to making intimacy more simple. Their decades of experience, combined with their scientifically proven methodologies, is revolutionizing intimacy, relationship, and sex coaching for both individuals and couples. They have 3 published books, 2 scientific papers, and over 20 online courses, which we'll talk about in our interview, and bespoke programs, and they have a podcast called the Embodied Love Lounge, and they are both changing how the world makes love and helping people live in a more connected way. Okay, so I'm really excited to get going here. So I have a lot of great questions for you guys. So first off, okay, is sexual chemistry real, or is it something that people can intentionally build?
Ooh. Yes and yes. Definitely, you can feel a hormonal rush when you're with someone, and you can also build a charge. You can build connection through just being with people in different ways. There's different ways to build intimacy and connection. One of the things that we teach definitely creates this magnetism between the bodies where after even many years, you're leading in for more and more so that chemistry can get more intense. And there's ways in which chemistry is not actually honest. So you're picking up on, like, if I really want some intense hormonally induced craziness, like, he's the one, that's probably like a teenage fantasy. It's not going to happen so much in midlife. And so if we're looking for that high, that peak experience, in initial, like, I sniffed him and went crazy, that's not always a great sign. It's also not always a sign for something that's going to last very long. So that there's that piece, and then it could also be a sign of even your trauma pattern or your attachment pattern,
or where a woman is in her cycle.
Yes, where she is in her cycle. Definitely.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're ovulating, you're going to notice men or another female very differently than if you're on your period, for example.
Wow.
Your receptivity is very, very different because of that hormonal influence.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And then they did a whole study looking at dancers, strippers, and how much money they made. And across the board, they make way more money when they were ovulating than any other time of the month. And they studied that even over a few months. Yeah.
Wow.
Also 2 other studies where they've had women lined up where they're not able to see them, and then the men will be choosing the women based off of typically where they are in their cycle. I think it was even with a glass in between them too.
That's pretty cool.
Interesting. Oh my God, that's fascinating. Yeah, so something that I talk a lot about with my clients who are dating is, not looking for that crazy chemistry when you're dating, because it's not always, it's not like when we were teenagers, or, a lot of these people haven't dated since, they were 18, 19, 20, they met their partner and married them, and now they're dating again, and they're looking for that same crazy, that teenagery chemistry. And it's really, I think it's just so much more about building that between 2 people than having it just there, and I think oftentimes when it is there, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means that there's chemistry between you. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a lasting relationship, right?
Well, I'd say too, the number one misunderstanding around chemistry, around sexual desire and arousal, is that we typically are looking for something external in terms of maybe some different attributes, looks, etc., versus the secret that people find, especially when they work with us, and that is something that you can actually be coached on, is being able to harness or to nurture that within yourself. If you generate your body in a way, your emotional side, as well as your psyche in a way that creates arousal, both blood flow as well as turn on and emotional availability, then you are going to encounter sexual chemistry much more often and feel it as well.
Hmm. You mean with more people?
Yes.
With
Across
more
the board?
people, because essentially you're turned on by yourself. I mean, I worked in the dating coaching industry, and one of the
Okay.
biggest things I think guys would find out was that a lot of the women weren't really dressing for them. They were dressing to make themselves feel sexy. And the
Oh,
more that
that's so
a woman can actually
interesting.
feel sexy from the inside, not
Yeah.
just from how it looks on the outside, and this is the same for men, then that chemistry is more available because you're actually exuding it as opposed to performing it.
Right, right. Oh, that's so interesting. But yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah, that's what I talk about. I come from a styling background, so I talk a lot about like what you wear and feeling confident in what you wear on a date, and I think that's so important. But part of it is feeling walking out the door feeling sexy, and just feeling confident and sexy when you walk out the door. And that can mean like make or break your night, really. Doesn't matter who you're meeting. So yeah, I love that. That's so interesting. And so what are your thoughts on, I think a lot in the dating space you hear now more frequently about sapiosexuals and
Mhm.
how, basically what, from my understanding, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong here, but that it's basically you feel sexual if you feel intellectually compatible with the person. Is that right? Am I right about that? Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's something really hot about a mind that just gets your mind going.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that you have to be like the exact same level of intelligence. It's not like that. It's just that that person's mind, the way that they think, how they express themselves, the way they explore the world, that turns you on. It's like, ooh,
Right.
wow. So that's the kind of turn on that sapiosexual is based on how that person's mind is functioning and expressing itself.
Yeah, well, okay, so that was kind of how I understood it too, but I think the misconception is that you don't care about someone's looks or you only care about their mind. And I think basically what I'm saying is that we're all kind of sapiosexuals to some extent, especially in middle age, right? That's kind of how I
It's
think of it anyway.
This is the problem with any label. This is why we don't actually like labels. We
Okay.
prefer to help people
Got it. I would
feel
love to
their
hear
way,
what you guys think of polyamory now.
because I feel like labels put us in little boxes and they're very uncreative. And then you're trying to
Mhm.
stay in your box because you're like, I am this. Then
Mhm.
suddenly you have an experience with an extraordinary person and you have to step out of your box to meet that person. Are you going to stay in your box, or are you actually going to just step out and meet that person? So if
Right.
you're embodied, if you trust yourself, if you're really here, and then you have a new experience, you're like, what is this? You're not worried about that you've never thought that way before, you never, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're here, you're an emergent person. Desire is an emergent force of nature. It's leading you
Right.
somewhere. It's an
Right.
important force of nature. And if we have boxed ourselves in with too many labels, that's what kills our desire. It's what kills our capacity to even be magnetic, to be connected.
Mhm.
So we prefer people to leave their boxes, like you played in those long enough. Now who are you without that? And feel and sense your way through the connection, through the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good advice. Yeah. I know it's interesting how people want to label themselves a lot on dating apps. You see that a lot. So, and I think it's confusing. I think especially if, what were you going to say, Aaron?
Well, I was going to say that a lot of times I believe people will use labels to sort of eliminate the risk of rejecting or being rejected by another
Mhm.
person. And a lot of times it is this like, oh, I don't want to have to reject them, or I don't want them to reject me. And so I feel a little uncomfortable with that. But where that chemistry or where the magic happens is being present in that moment and having a genuine felt state connection with the person. Because then all of a sudden you're like, I never thought that I would have, but there's something that happens in that conversation and they really drop in and tune in with one another. And I believe there's a rise as well in the desire for a sapiosexual attraction, because we live very disconnected from our bodies. And even the word mind, if you look at the cognitive sciences, they will tell you that the mind is embodied, meaning that the psyche or the brain or our thoughts, not the brain, because that's again the physical side, but our thoughts and our body have been held as two separate things. But when they're in conflict, that's actually when you have an unhealthy state of a mind. A mind is both brain, psyche, thoughts, and body functioning as one.
Mm.
We don't go through the world perceiving and understanding how cognition works just with our eyes and thinking. It's something that we truly feel. Even as kids, as we go through and navigate the world, we put blocks up, and that establishes our understanding of up and down. We taste everything.
Mhm.
This is part of how we develop our cognition. But then as we get more and more removed from that and more having to rely on external visual stimuli, then we lose that ability to tap into our other senses. And that's then when we have the separation between the two, and we say the mind body really disconnect. But as we start to really sink into feeling our way through the world, then we bring a resonance between that and our thoughts, and we will much more easily be able to feel attraction, find attraction, and reality really changes.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say sensuality is how we make sense of reality.
Mm.
And so in order to make better sense of what's in front of us, we need to fully turn on our sensuality. All of the senses need to be activated and present and tracked and
Mhm.
felt by who we are. So it's really important information. Another thing I wanted to say, just in regards to where we're at in this conversation, is
Mhm.
if you're dating and you have this mission, I have to find the one, and you have this
Mhm.
really mission, you might miss, quote unquote, the one. And the reason for that is if you're going off a checklist, there might be someone really extraordinary that doesn't fully fit on that list, but meets you in a way you've never been met before. So paying attention to that, using every single date as a learning experience. Even if you walk away, you're like, I never want to see that person again. What did you love about it? You know what? I really love the way that, Great. Now, that's an important piece of information, because that's something that's going to be a character trait of the person that you might end up with for your life. So I always tell my clients, like, don't worry so much that it didn't work out. What were the pieces that you really loved? What were the things that turn you on? That can be more of an indicator than some formal list of, a certain height and a certain.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I honestly couldn't agree more with you. And that's exactly my coaching method is really all about, you cannot decide whether you want to be with someone on the first date. You just can't. Unless obviously they're like rude or something happens that it's like, there's no way. As long as there's no red flags, you have to get to know someone. And I agree with you. Like, it can't be superficial traits. It can't be what job do they have? How tall are they? It cannot be those. It has to be. And
Those
I think
are not.
the more you get to know someone, the more you become connected to them.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Those traits you just listed, they don't make for a good mate necessarily.
Exactly.
However, if you pay attention to other qualities that really are valuable, like, do they tell the truth? What do they do when you tell the truth? How do they respond to that? Like, these are things that are actually more important, and you're not going to know that in one date. You're going to need to play a little bit and meet a few times, maybe in different scenarios, in order to feel into this human being.
Right. And flirt, frankly. I think that's something else. I think people have forgotten how to flirt.
Yeah, flirt is fun.
Yeah.
What happens a lot of times is that, especially if we've, for whatever reason, been removed or have removed ourselves from the dating pool and haven't really been interacting with other people, and we sort of live in our own bubble, and then we start to, reading books, or maybe we're just watching TV shows, whatever that external input that comes into us, and we go, okay, this is the kind of partner that I want. We decide that without really feeling into and interacting with others. We essentially go and do this checklisting that we've spoken about. And what happens is that the people that are most likable are typically the people that like people in general. And the people that like people in general are also become the most likable. So if we've put ourselves in this bubble and we enter with all these judgments, we're actually not putting off likableness
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
extract that out of the other person.
Yeah.
And so by going out there and just practicing, what do I like about this person? Then you become more likable. Actually, I have a quick little story here. I had a friend, and he had been going on Tinder, and I'd never been on Tinder before. And I said, you know what? I've been hearing about this app. This is maybe like 5 years ago. And I said, let me take a look at it. And so he's like, here, just go ahead and just swipe and do whatever you like. So I'm going on there, I'm swiping and I'm doing likes and dislikes and all this type of stuff and left and right. Well, the next day I'm going for a walk and I'm in Copenhagen. And as I'm seeing women walking towards me, I literally was just going, no, 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 yes, no, no, no. And then I just stopped myself and I go, this is really strange. I walk through the streets and going, what do I like about that person? What do I like about that person? So I'm naturally finding the things I like. Whereas through the apps, I'm literally trying to eliminate. And for women,
That's crazy. Yeah.
you get bombarded with thousands of, potential mates who are looking for something from you. And so you're having to just eliminate. And so when you go on a date, you're quickly looking for the quickest way to eliminate a person. And then you miss out on, well, what are the actual likable traits that you would find on them? And those are the tendencies to carry a lot more truth about their character and who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's actually something that I also coach is, trying to find one thing on each profile that you do like. It doesn't mean you have to swipe right on them, but just to kind of retrain yourself instead of looking for what to swipe left on. Like, what do you like about the person? I fully agree with that. That's so interesting that you were looking at people in real life that way too. I'm sure that's really common, actually. Yeah. No, and also just your the comment about being likable, liking other people, it makes you likable, and it's so true, and that's actually how my partner is too. It's like he was so friendly and outgoing and asked so many questions that it was hard not to like him. Like we didn't have an attraction until like our fourth date, but it was like hard not to want to be around someone that's so interested in what you have to say, and then that makes you interested, and then it's like the likability quotient goes way up. Thanks. That was a good story. Okay, so my next question is there such a thing as sexual incompatibility, or is it a skills issue?
Another great question here. I feel a lot of times when that question gets asked, we're asking about, do we fit together physically? Like, is the person tall? Is the other person too short? Or, is their penis too large or too small? Is my vagina too tight? Is my vulva look a certain way? I mean, like these type of compatibilities. And in that case, that is definitely a trained skill set. Now, of course, you can have some of the extremes into the 99.9th percentile where you'd say, okay, this is maybe not compatible, but our bodies are actually made to come together. And I mean that in both, that our bodies actually can be joined. And that has a lot to do with learning to use the different body mechanics, as well as just, you could almost call it erotic intelligence, I think is a term that you like to use a lot, to then navigate, well, what and how do our bodies match? And that will change over the lifetime based off of where we're at hormonally, where our physical capabilities are as joints start to ache or not, etc. And we start to meet with a curiosity and creativity that actually takes away from sex ever becoming a routine.
I think the better question in this arena is, are your non-negotiables compatible?
Yes.
Because it's a values issue less than a chemistry and body issue. So if you really value, I don't know, a strong, healthy body, and you meet someone who just does not like to move, never like eats well, doesn't care, speaks only about their body, I would say you're incompatible on the values level, because that's going to cause stress over time.
Right.
So just knowing your own, like, what are my non-negotiables? What are the true values that are really important to me? And does that person resonate at least with them? Doesn't have to be a perfect match, but do they believe in the divine? Do they like nature? Do they love business? Like, what are those things?
Or are they in relation to their family? Or
are they a family person or not? That's where that's where we need to focus a little more, whether it's compatible or not. Over time.
Yeah. No, I really like that. Yeah, that's great. Such good advice.
We definitely coach all kinds of bodies to have a lot of fun together. I mean, literally all kinds of bodies. And sometimes we do need to get a little creative, but bodies are bodies, and they can all learn to breathe and move together.
That must be so interesting.
It's really fun.
Really would want to get more into that at some point. There needs to be a part two.
There's another part too. It's not just bodies. There are the way that we get mentally aroused then as well. A lot of us think about mental arousal in terms of, like a certain kink, or maybe that there's a certain stature that they have to have. But as you begin to understand not just the body mechanics, but the different psychological mechanics that underlie mental arousal, then you can also start to both expand your own erotic horizon, but then begin to tap in and tune into, well, what is this other person's mental arousal type? How do we start to then begin to vibe on that level as well? So that way there's both, again, that mental as well as physical arousal, and there's a match there.
Right.
Inside ourselves as well as others. And it just opens up the whole playground that you can begin to really explore one another.
Right. And you're working with individuals and couples, right?
Yes.
Both, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so do you work with a lot of single people? Like people that are...
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
A huge amount of our community, there's plenty of singles of all ages. And what's beautiful about that is I firmly believe that our primary relationship, the most valuable, important one to invest time and energy into, is with ourselves.
Yeah.
How we love ourselves is essentially going to show us how we're going to be available in loving another. So if we have a really harsh internal voice, or we don't actually take good care of ourselves, or the way that we have sex with ourselves is very quick and fast, and like it's going to translate. So having a really sexy, fun, deep, profound, respectful relationship with ourselves, with our bodies, with our hearts, with our minds is really crucial. So a lot of the foundational work we do is just to get people to fall madly, deeply in love with themselves and feel super like, I'm happy whether I'm single or in a relationship. And if I'm relating, I'm not losing myself in this connection. I'm more sovereign and have more gifts to bring because of that.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Ugh, so good. I love that. And actually, this kind of all leads to my next question. So is libido something that you have or not, like kind of either or? And also like kind of related, do you believe that menopause, like once your libido does lower during menopause, do you feel like that, like can you build that back up again? Or is it like, of course everybody talks about taking testosterone now to help their libido. Do you feel like that's the only way to get your libido up again, or what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I'll go a little bit on the chemistry side of things, because
there's a lot in this question.
Yeah, this could be a whole
there are definite answers here, and so
good, because I think this is going to be something that people are really going to want to hear about. Yeah.
Well, the definition of libido, first of all, gets mixed up with like feeling sexual desire. So there's physical energy, and then there's the mental arousal, there's hormonal arousal, and that all kind of gets misconstrued. So in the body, if a woman takes testosterone, a lot of them will, because they're like, I don't feel anything anymore, I want to get horny again. And so where I get called in is, I'm taking it and I don't feel anything. What do I do now? Because it's not a physical thing that's going on with their turn on, with their desire. They actually need to start connecting with life in the ways that could light them up, could turn them on. They spent so long being busy, or the to-do list, or shutting down to stay safe, or whatever the choice was, that they actually don't know what's fun. A lot of women, if you ask them like, well, what would you love? What do you want? They'll just tell you everything they don't want. They know that really well, but they won't tell you what they really want. And there's two reasons for them. One, they may have never thought about it. Some people seriously don't take a moment to think, well, actually, what could I enjoy out of this moment? They're not thinking that. So that's one. So exploring that's a whole avenue. And the other is just this sense of, how would you put it? Maybe you can help me out here. So there's the not exploring what you want is a big one. And then just this sense of, it's a little bit like inhibition, where you're afraid that if you are to say what you would like, that you won't get it. So it's almost like a self-betrayal or too scary to go, you know what, I would love this. And then the person maybe says,
rejects
no.
you.
And so it's better to just not take that risk.
Right.
I disagree. I think it's start living a little more audaciously, as though this is it. Today's your day. This is the day.
Right.
And lean in. And that becomes magnetic and sexy, actually, when a person's willing to just go, you know what, to heck with it. Here's what I'd love. Wow, that's a cool thought. But that vulnerability, that inhibition, I see that really shutting a lot of people down.
So even, for example, like in married couples that, you know, have been together for a long time, and then the woman goes through menopause, and then they, you know, sex slows down, all of that. You feel like some of it could just be that she's not asking for what she wants now?
Well, they've done some studies, and they've definitely seen that people with low desire are typically, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just not getting the kind of sex that even remotely interests them. So why would they bother pursuing it or asking for it or saying yes to it?
Right.
That's what I was going to say, is that, I mean, you normally will hear those together: low libido, low desire, and then those aren't distinguished. So yes, there is definite effects that menopause has on one's hormones, and men have it as well, andropause. And so if you look at libido just from a hormonal standpoint, then yes, this is absolutely real. Now, if you, let's say, handle the hormonal aspect in whichever way it is that you do, there are still other factors that are then going to still cause the person to maybe think that they just have a low libido. So one is, if you've never had sexual experiences that have led towards something pleasurable, then over time, the body shuts down. It just says, okay, I'm not even just going to feel the pain anymore. I'm going to go into numbness. The emotional component of physical numbness is boredom. Therefore, low desire, which then, if you have low desire, then that can also start to then mean that the hormones are going to change, because you're also not really participating in that dance. Now, if we look at particularly orgasm, there are kind of the four main or five main reasons why a person does not achieve orgasm. There is, yes, the hormonal aspect to it, but you then have an ability to actually feel, the sensitivity, the ability to resensitize your tissues. So if you have a lot of pain, or if you have numbness, then learning how to actually bring more blood flow and oxygen to the areas of your body that are typically being inhibited, especially as you get older and maybe you're just not as physically active, or over time this starts to shut down, you then are not going to be feeling as much, therefore have less likelihood of reaching orgasm. Secondly is having the incorrect body mechanics. If we are always trying to squeeze and hold our stomachs up and remain tight, and even the way that we train in the gym, we have worked with amazing physical fitness trainers, and they will tell us time and time again that their clients get great bodies, but they have tight pelvic floors.
And like a lot of
Then,
ED.
yes, leads to pain, typically for someone on the receiving side of sex, and who are then having an erection on the giving side of sex. Then you are, and I guess some people would say not to sex, but intercourse, you're then going to have different types of erectile issues.
Okay.
The other part of it is how we then define pleasure. If we are chasing an orgasm to be the 7 to 8 tight contractions with around 0.7 to 0.8 seconds in between and decreasing in the latency until termination, if that's our definition of orgasm and it has to only be that way, then we start to actually lose the ability to appreciate some of these deeper, almost predominantly parasympathetic orgasms, which don't fit the classical model. And then the last part is, if we are not emotionally available, then we are going to be more shut down. We're not going to feel as much, and we're not going to be able to enter into, intercourse means communication, into even just any kind of sexual experience or even intimacy. The ability to feel one another and attune to one another is going to be shut down. You're going to have less pleasure, less orgasm, and then of course you bring in the hormonal change on top of all of that, and you have a recipe for disaster that maybe you could have gotten away with when you were younger, and maybe one or two of those factors were off.
I want to say something though, because it's very
Go
important.
ahead.
There's a mystery around female bodies. So a little side note, it's not just the women who have menopause, men who go through andropause. So both bodies are going through big hormonal changes. And when men have spent a lifetime discharging their sexual energy, they're not very magnetic, so you're less attracted to them. When they learn to rebuild that charge, we've seen it time and time again, doesn't matter the age of the guy, he suddenly becomes this like honey to all the bees. Like, it's so misty, it's so beautiful, and it doesn't matter again, like their age or even what they look like. But on the female side,
And by that you mean like having ejaculatory choice?
Yes.
I don't know if that was obvious.
Okay, no, thank you for clarifying that, yeah.
But on the female side, they've seen a lot of weird things where a woman's like super low hormones, super low libido, not interested, like everything's shut down, suddenly meets someone that really arouses her and everything's back online instantly. Not like 2 weeks later, instantly.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
This happens over and over and over again. This is the psychosexual aspect of sex. This is the part where we need to start understanding there isn't a separation from how we're functioning to how we're actually framing our thoughts and beliefs. Like a lot of women have been told since pre-birth even that when you get to a certain age, you're no longer viable, you're no longer attractive. It's your sexless years. It's BS. Some of the most sexual women are after menopause. They have the most extraordinary sexual experiences, pleasure. They're more free. They're more wild. They're discovering things that they never thought possible. So it's a lie. It's a lie from an industry that profits massively on the insecurity of women. So I think one big thing I would say is just like, wherever you are on this journey, if you want to feel more lit up, it is possible. Of course, have a look. If you've got a serious, illness that's going on that's going to zap your energy, if you have a serious stressor in your life, like an ailing parent or a job that you hate, these things will also drain your energy a little bit. If you have a sleeping problem. But if you're doing the basics, hydrating, exercising, getting some sleep, and looking at, well, what's my yes now? Not what was my yes when I was 20. What is it now?
Yeah.
Right? And discovering that and giving yourself permission to explore that, you are going to bring back that charge into your system.
A lot of women that we work with will label themselves this way because frankly, they're like, well, I'm kind of dried out. I don't get wet during intercourse. I don't feel much of anything arousal towards a person. I could just frankly this part of myself is just
take it or leave it. Yeah. Or not actually just leave it.
Leave it. Yeah.
And they don't see it as a possibility. And then very quickly working with us, they're like, oh my God, I find that I am more wet. I am more engorged. I have more sexual desire. I know more of what I like than I ever did even when I was young.
Right.
Because all of those factors that we listed before were actually working against them, that now when they start to work for them, they are more comfortable with their own bodies. They are more comfortable with another person's body. And it just becomes this comes like the golden age, and they don't have all the different stressors of needing to make their career work. They don't have maybe the kids at home, and they're just like, ooh, now it's time to live. And I
Wow.
mean, it's a big story of hope. And what you need is hope when you have lived in a place
Yeah.
of pain.
Yeah.
But once you made that switch and really feel yourself, then it's just about the faith,
Mhm.
and
Right.
things to really change and take off. What
That's
was
so
the book?
that's so encouraging, I feel like, for women who are listening, especially since most of them are probably, of that age that are feeling that.
I prefer to call the menopause time as the entry into the power stage of life. Many other cultures regard this as your second spring, your second teenagehood. I know a group of ladies who call themselves the queenagers because they're
That's
not
cute.
teenagers, but they feel like a second teenage level of interest and fun.
That's
So
so
it
cute.
is very important collectively that we understand this.
Mm.
And North America is probably the worst place for negative energy, negative thoughts, negative beliefs around this. Other
Yeah.
cultures have a lot more positivity around it.
What was the book, Sex Throughout the Ages?
I don't know.
The one that I can't remember. You'll remember the name of the books. They talk about it. They go through decades.
Teresa Crenshaw's book,
Yes,
The Alchemy of Sex or something.
The Alchemy of Sex.
Mm,
Anyways,
mhm.
this book, they go through the different decades of people's lives and where people actually match up. And they find, or she was finding, that people into their 40s, 50s, and 60s, when they maintain their bodies, actually have the most compatibility between their bodies. They're talking about the kind of more typical heterosexual matching. They would
Mhm.
find that men, typically testosterone is going to lower relative to what it was before,
Mhm.
and women, estrogen is going to lower relative to what it was before, meaning that women are wanting to have more sex because relatively they have more testosterone,
Mhm.
and men are more up for the emotional connection as they have relative from before more estrogen.
Mhm.
Not that the
That's
roles reverse,
interesting.
but all of a sudden they find that there is an intense compatibility there, and this is completely not addressed. And I mean, frankly, there's a lot of ageism when it comes
Yes.
to
A lot of
your
ageism.
sexual
Yeah.
desires.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That-
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so encouraging. I feel like that, yeah, I want to use that in our clip because I feel like that's what people need to hear is that like there's hope, like you said, there's hope and there's actually solutions if they work with you guys or take your courses. I want to hear more about that after, but I haven't. The other question actually that leads me to, and I think this is going to be a big one for my listeners, is ED. I hear about this a lot, mostly from my female clients who are dating men that, this comes up and that it's really challenging for everybody to talk about it. So for people experiencing that, how should they talk about it with a new partner? Is there, like, I think one client, she was like wondering, like, is this just how it is? Like, and she was afraid to ask. And like, is this our future together, or is there hope, that kind of thing? How do you talk about that? And I guess what are some of the causes, and like psychological versus physical, and kind of all of that. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say.
That's another big question. Could be an entire
I know, an entire episode, right? I know.
just on that.
4 minutes or less now.
First of all, let's break ED down a little bit before we jump into
That's
it.
like umbrella.
Okay.
There is erectile dysfunction, which a lot of times could do something maybe with like a heart condition, or maybe a person has diabetes. There's different reasons for erectile dysfunction from that sense. Then there's reasons for what people suffer as premature ejaculation, which can get lumped into erectile dysfunction.
Yeah,
Then you
okay.
have other ones that have delayed ejaculation, meaning that they're actually not able to then have an orgasm or to ejaculate. And then there's performance anxiety, which is where you'd kind of categorize this more in the psychological realm. And the fastest growing population of those with ED, in the big umbrella sense of the term, is not the typical, what used to be the 50 plus age range due to maybe something with cardiovascular health, but now it's actually a younger and younger situation. And that's primarily driven by a psychological criteria that's really causing for performance anxiety.
And you're hearing about that and seeing that in people that are a lot younger now. So you
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, there's even teenagers that are now taking Viagra. So, and by the time they're 19, they feel broken because like nothing's really working.
Wow.
So yes, there is hope, a lot of hope. Our YAFAP program is extraordinary. I mean, it's mostly Aaron's work. I come in a little bit on a little support role in that program, but just observing what happens to the men who go through this program. It's 21 days. It's very simple, but it completely reorients a man to how he relates to his own body. And I was always amazed that usually within day 3, which is only what, 6 minutes of practice, there's massive changes.
Wow.
And what I loved is to hear from the partners, because it's not that course. We have many courses that are designed to like how to play with your partner and all of that fun stuff. But this one is strictly for men to really harness their potency and feel really confident with their body no matter what's going on. And what I would loved hearing from the women was like, he's so much better lover. I actually, for the first time ever, had a vaginal orgasm, or I've usually only had pain. Now I have no pain because of how he's breathing and moving. So there's a huge side effect, side benefit just to that. And so absolutely there's hope, but we just don't talk about it. And this is a resource. If I could yell it out to millions of people, I would do that, because time and time again, we literally take data. So every client that's gone through, we collect data, and just the results are extraordinary from a man who is willing just to have a look and just to learn how to touch himself differently, breathe differently, be with himself differently.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll definitely link that program in the show notes, because I'm sure a lot of people would maybe we don't have a lot of men listeners, but a lot of women who would probably send that link to other men.
You could do it as a female partner with the man as well.
Oh, okay.
There's a component of that where you can join in and support the man in practice. So
yeah.
I mean, this too it's not just anecdotal, meaning that we have lots of testimonials. We went through a 3-year IRB approved study and have a published paper where we built what was called the penetration protocol. And they were looking at the different, and like we had those 2 statisticians from London Imperial College that were analyzing the data. And I mean, they almost couldn't believe how high the stats were. It was around 40 different couples, total of 80 different people, and it was an 8-week process. And just doing one simple exercise, or maybe 2 to 3 simple exercises per week, one time, and they had these results, which were lowered female sexual dysfunction index markers. Men lasted 2 to 3 more times than they did. They were kind of on an average of lasting around 4 minutes during penetration, to then lasting around the 12-15 minute range. Women were more intense orgasms, having more orgasms. They had better communication during, before, and after sex. They had increased feelings of love and intimacy.
Wow.
And I mean, all of these markers went up drastically. And this essentially is because the number one educator in how the way people embody the act of intercourse is porn. And that's really about, harder, faster, bigger, tighter. And then you have the kind of opposite end, which normal sex therapy will tell you is that, well, rely just on a vibrator, or it's just about oral sex or turn taking. And so when we talk about changing the way the world makes love, we teach the bodies actually to come back towards a more natural state of learning to attune to one another. And it's how to move their hips together, how to breathe, how to actually express their yes and no from a body state that isn't just verbal, but embodied consent. And when all these factors come together, and this can happen very quickly, it revolutionizes the way people experience sex, but also the way that they interact throughout that experience. And in that way, now all of a sudden, a penis has a natural cycle of arousal, wherein it's not just get hard, stay hard, ejaculate, and be done. That's the part that stresses out men.
Right.
Instead,
Right.
they become very comfortable with their bodies. And then their partners also start to learn how they can activate their arousal system to be able to become more wet, to be able to also play with their mental arousal. And then as those bodies attune, that is the number one predictor of sexual satisfaction, is the ability for bodies to truly attune towards one another. And then you get to have a thing called biological synchronicity. There's a whole other academic route we could go down.
Yeah,
Papers,
yeah.
the heartbeats start to time together, and this happens naturally.
Wow.
And the more that you can begin to attune your bodies to one another in these ways, all of a sudden you find out it's not that men and women are from different worlds. In fact, their bodies are meant to complement and even supplement one another.
I think the atrocity, Alyssa, is that, where did we learn about sex? Movies, TV shows, porn, all of that is entertainment. None of it is actual, real education. So we're walking around, the blind leading the blind, and then we all believe somehow that, oh no, I'm good at sex, I know sex. Well, just because you had sex doesn't mean you're actually good at it, or that and maybe you are good at it, but you could be great, you could be amazing, you could be extraordinary. And that's a learned skill. So that's why I love it, because you can just keep growing in that skill set for your whole life. Sex only can get better and better, not like peter out. So by learning skills, you keep that alive. And that's what we've seen, especially in our older couples that we've helped out. They're on, they're hot, they're horny, they're ready. Amazing.
And it doesn't matter what sexual orientation. We've worked with people that are sex, we've worked with people that are heterosexual, homosexual. Like, it's not an orientation problem. The orgasm gap is there because there's a penetration problem. People not understanding how the bodies really work together.
Yeah. Fascinating. It really is so encouraging. And I feel like, well, first of all, I think everybody should check out your courses, because it sounds like a lot of this can be done at home on your own, or with your partner, or if you're single, by yourself. So if you can tell people how they can find you, but then I definitely feel like we need a part 2. There's so many things that I want to ask, but I know we have to wrap up. So tell people how they can find you, and then I'll definitely link to your courses and everything too.
Well, definitely have a look at Embodied Love University. That project there is really about just giving a foundational part to the world, that there should be sex education that's sex positive, and this
become fluent.
And become fluent, not just sexually literate, meaning that you can kind of say, well, who and what do you like? It's more of, can you actually feel the things that we've spoken about? Now, different courses you're going to find there are going to be courses that you can then do, which is your own self-practice, focusing on yourself, having a partner then also maybe join in on that. Or then there's courses where, how do you pleasure your partner? And then there's courses in how do you find mutual pleasure together? And there's just a full range there. And then the last part,
for everyone.
Exactly.
For everybody.
We're building community, so we'll be once a month having like something that we call the Love Lab, where we'll give you, Alyssa, here's a personal practice, here's something you can do with your partner, and then come on, a month later, Q&A, talk directly with us, with the community. This is what couples and singles love, is to normalizing that whole conversation about all things sex, intimacy, and connection.
That's great. Yeah.
And then if anyone did want to go a little deeper with us, we just ask them that they contact you directly, and we get the referrals specifically from you directly.
Because we work on a much more limited basis that way, just because it requires that one-on-one
in person. Yeah, right.
And we always do that via referrals. So that would be something that would be opened up to your community via you.
Yeah, amazing. I love it. Thanks so much, you guys. I personally learned a ton, and I hope everybody else did too, I'm sure. We really do have to do a part 2. Yeah.
We'll be back. Sounds good. I don't know where in the world we'll be. Maybe South Africa.
I know. You guys have the best life ever.
Thank you too for getting people to step out of their bubble and being able to like actually interact with someone face to face and just get that reset of what is it like to really interact. And that's just such a gift, and it's becoming more and more rare. So again, thank you for
what you do, yeah.
for doing that.
Yeah,
And bringing
thank
that
you.
forward.
And same. Yeah. All right. We'll have you on again. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to The Dating Lab. If today's episode gave you something to think about, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. And if you want more dating guidance, you can find me on Instagram or at stylemyprofile.nyc.com. Until next time, remember, dating is a process, not a verdict. You're doing better than you think.